have reached the Mike Wiley Show. This call may be recorded for training purposes, or because Bill Clinton enacted the Echelon domestic spying program in 1993 on all American citizens that Democratic senators had no problem with because Democrats only have problems when you spy on terrorists. For English, press 1. For Spanish, press 2. For French, press 3. For Austrian, press 4. For domestic terrorism, contact Bill Ayers at the White House switchboard. For treason, contact Barack Obama at the White House switchboard. For surrender, contact Hillary Rodham Clinton at the White House switchboard. For military intelligence, contact the editor of Rolling Stone magazine. For income tax avoidance, contact Timothy Geithner on his cell phone. And for today's joke of the day, contact Joe Biden directly at 811. To repeat this menu, press 9. For Mike Wiley, press number 6.
I am not a number. I am a free man.
Faster than a speeding typewriter. More powerful than a printing press. Able to speak over tall buildings in a single sound. Look, up on the dial.
It's a conservative. It's a liberal.
It's Supermouth. Yes, it's Supermouth, strange visitor from the past with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal talk show hosts. Supermouth, who can change the course of local politics, bend ears with his bare mouth, and who, disguised as Mike Wiley, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan radio show, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
Good morning and welcome to another adventure into podcast radio. I am Mike Wiley, former evil radio talk show host, now evil podcast host. And today we're going to discuss the IRS versus Mike Wiley and why the IRS doesn't agree with Mike Wiley. And Mike Wiley is going to prove to you today why they're full of shit. But we always knew that, okay? Let me explain something to you. Okay, this is an example. See this pile of paperwork? There are secret documents in here stating the plans to destroy America. But you can't read them. You can't see them because they're buried in these papers. And that's how they hide shit from America. They put it in these papers. Now, we have this organization called Doge, and they're finding all this shit, but we already knew it existed. We just didn't see it because of too much paperwork in between. I'm going to expose some of that to you today, and we're going to show the IRS examination test, which you have to take in order to become an IRS agent. Okay, it's very important. So we're going to cover that today, and we're going to introduce you to the war that started in 2008 that I have been battling the IRS for. I got files upon files of stuff with these people. But it's because, you see, I was raised to be honest. And so I've been honest all my life. And I've been an American all my life. And I pledged my loyalty to the United States of America when I was in first grade, maybe even when I was in kindergarten, when I pledged allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Somebody in this country has forgotten that. We're going to remind them, okay? We're at war. We've been at war. Matter of fact, this is the special April 15th Tax Day show. And today, April 15th, which actually is tomorrow, I'm doing this show on Monday. And you know me, I have to be honest. But April 15th, 2025 is what? What is April 15th, 2025? What is it? Hi, it's the 160th anniversary of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Wow. So that's how they picked April 15th to remind us. You know, the Democrats gave us the income tax in 1913, the bastards that they are, and they've been screwing us ever since. If you go through and see what happened when Barack Obama and the Democrats were in power, which is one of the things we're talking about today, okay, because they pulled a fast one. And, I've got it covered, and we're going through that today because I'm not stopping with this shit. The IRS wants to take me to court. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Come on. I don't think they want to. And the reason why I don't think they want to is because they know where all the cheating is. These people know how they're screwing us. They just don't want to tell you. And when you point it out, they want to go, no, that's not true. Shut up. These are frivolous. This is frivolous. This is frivolous. Well, I'm going to show you frivolous, okay? Because I happen to have my trusty Black's Law Dictionary. Every first-year law student has to get one. And if you know anything about me, is I provide proof sources. So you can't go, come on, Mike, you little woo. No, the government is woo. The Democrats are woo. And some Republicans are woo. You know, especially the ones from Maine and Alaska. I do a show, The War This Week with Mike Wiley, and I also do a show called Upon Further Review. The War This Week with Mike Wiley is basically what the Democrats have been doing to us this time frame. The Democrats have been at war to us since 160 years ago today, on April 15th, 1865, when they shot and killed Abraham Lincoln. They actually shot him the night before, and Lincoln died on April 15th. And the Democrats want us to remember that. They killed him, and that's why we pay taxes, because of the Democrats. Let's do the IRS examination test. Which number is larger, 400 or 8,417? I know it's difficult to think. I'll give you another minute. Which number is larger, 400 or 8,417? The answer, of course, is 400. The Internal Revenue Service is telling us that inflation in 2022 was around $8,400. I think it was like $700 a month. So $700 a month times 12 months is $8,417. Okay, but the IRS only increased the standard deduction by $400. What? Wait a minute here. Inflation is a tax. And I'm going to play some videos of 4 people telling you inflation is a tax created by the federal government because of what Congress spends. Oh, so this is the result of Congress. That makes it legal. And this is the $400 Congress is trying to shove up our ass and steal $8,000 from us. Could you have used that $8,000? Bet your ass you could have. What happened? 2022. What was 2022? Oh, yeah. 2022 was the last year of the Democratic Congress. They could do whatever the hell they wanted to. Next question. I'm going to just move out of here for a second. 2008, first-time home buyer's tax credit. 2009, first-time home buyer's tax credit. What is the difference in these 2 lines? I'm going to give you 2 minutes on this one. This is a trick question. I know you don't know the answer. 2008, first-time home buyer's tax credit. 2009, first-time home buyer's tax credit. I got the music somewhere, but I didn't bother finding it. So I give you time to think about stuff. Okay, what's the answer? No, it's not the dates. It's the word credit. Yeah. What's the difference in the word Should I say tax credit? What's the difference? This is a refundable credit. What? It's a refundable credit. What the F is a refundable? Oh, hold on. Time to go to the book. Here it is. This is my Black's Law Dictionary. Okay. And let's see. We're going to go to the word credit. Here we go. Credit, belief, trust, one's ability to borrow money, the faith in one's ability, the time that a seller can blah, 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 the availability of funds, either. There's a bank credit. There's a consumer credit. There's an installment credit. There's a non-installment credit. There's a revolving credit. But there's no refundable credit. Where did that term come from? Refundable credit. Let's see. I bet Mike's got that. I'm just guessing. You know me. Here it is. H.R. 5643. See, the U.S. Senate Democrats came up with an idea as part of the Housing Act to give taxpayers a deduction of $7,500 if they bought a house for the first time, which means you haven't owned a home in 3 years. If you haven't owned a home in 3 years, you're a first-time home buyer, even if you've owned 7,000 homes before that. Okay, so this is H.R. 5643 to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to allow a refundable credit against income tax for the purchase of principal residence by a first-time homebuyer. A bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to allow a refundable credit against income tax for the purchase of principal residence by a first-time homebuyer. Okay. In general, subpart C of Part 4 of Subchapter A of Chapter 1 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 relating to refundable credits is amended by redesignating Section 36 as Section 37 and by inserting after Section 35 the following new section. Section 36, purchase of principal residence by first-time homebuyer. Allowance and credit. You know what's interesting is they don't use the term refundable tax credit anywhere else. And it doesn't say anything about a refundable tax credit on the tax return. Why is that? Why is that? Here, let me read this to you. Here's an article, CNN, payback time for home buyer tax credit. Okay, we're going to skip that. We're going to go right to this. April 13th, 2025, that's when I printed out. This was a home buyer stimulus bill bonus, January 29th, 2009. First-time home buyers could receive a $7,500 tax credit if they purchase soon. If you're thinking of buying a home, that could be a big bonus for you in the economic stimulus that's now before Congress. January 2009. Barack Obama's president. Barack Obama is now president, not George Bush. When George Bush was president, it was a refundable tax credit that you had to pay back. But we're not going to tell you that you have to pay it back. Of course, it's going to be in the small print in the instructions. But if you have somebody do your tax return, like I did, can you imagine? 50 years I do tax returns, my own tax returns. 1 year, I decide to have somebody do it for me because I want to take the $7,500 tax credit. And in order to do so, I have to bring my income down. So I go ahead and I buy a $25,000 truck so we can write the whole thing off under Schedule C for taxes because I was starting a business called Princess Labs. I had purchased in that year 2 purebred Labrador females, and I was going to breed them and start a puppy farm. I love black Labradors. Greatest dogs. Greatest dogs. So I had this person who was my accounting manager at the school. I had her do the tax return. She did up through the system, and it was fine. I read the whole thing over, and I signed it. Send it in. The only problem is they don't say anything on the form that you have to pay it back. But that's where you sign. Hold on a second. Here's the contract. You're having me sign it, but you have a secret word called refundable tax credit you can't find anywhere. But the instructions say you have to pay it back over 15 years. But what if you had somebody do your tax return for you and you didn't read the instructions because you didn't have to? And you filled it all out. They filled it all out. You reviewed it. Okay, only been in accounting for 40 years, 30 years back then. Signed it and off we go. And then 2 years later, I get a bill for $500. I'm like, what the F is this? Yeah, that's fraud. That's fraud. So, we have a new term coming up. You ready? Technically, the stimulus bill is actually changing the terms of the $7,500 tax credit that was issued as part of the Housing Recovery Act, which Congress passed last summer. So in 2008, the Democratic Congress, run by Nancy Pelosi, passed the Recovery Act, and they came up with this, but they wanted you to pay it back over 15 years. Because George Bush was president, and you shouldn't be rewarded for that. But the next year, it's Obama, and we want to celebrate that Obama, the Democrat, the guy from Kenya, is now phony president, and we're gonna honor him by coming up with another tax credit, and you don't have to pay that back because Obama's signing it. So you get rewarded if you buy your house when Obama's president, but you don't get rewarded when you buy your house when Bush is president. The interesting part about it is they allowed you to take the tax deduction in 2008, the same as the tax deduction for 2008 and 2009. In other words, you can take either one of them. You can take these in 2008. Now, why is that? Well, because you have till April 15th to send your taxes in 2009 for 2008. And the Democrats came up with this in January 2009. So the question is, why in God's name did you not allow these people to refinance or to amend their 2008 tax return? Huh? Because the tax return wasn't due till April 15th. And you changed the law by coming up with a new law in January of 2009, which wasn't signed until like November 2009 by Barack Obama. Okay? Why did they screw these people? Purposely! Purposely. But wait! The IRS says that Mike Wiley brings this up. He's got documentation to prove we're cheating the American people for the Democrats. Why? Why, Mike? That's frivolous. Really? Let's look up what the word frivolous means. We go to our trusty book. Here it is, frivolous. They sent me a letter and they says, well, we've determined that your tax return is frivolous. And it was a $500 penalty, but in the 2006 health care bill, think about this. In the 2000, now here's how they steal money. Okay? They're going to increase the penalty for frivolous tax returns from $500 to $5,000. Unfortunately, the $5,000 violates the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution. And of course, the Democrats don't pay attention to the Constitution, except when it's to try to keep Trump from becoming president. And they destroy the meaning of the 14th Amendment to get you believe it was an insurrection. It was an insurrection. No, it was a Nancy Pelosi coup d'etat. And Kash Patel's going to let her know that. So, let me read this to you. Frivolous, lacking a legal basis or legal merit. Not serious. Not reasonably purposeful. Really? Really? So in other words, I have two documents of evidence, this one and this one, and I decide to fix my tax return in 2022 to be correct to what the law should be. Because as far as I'm concerned, this tax law is cocky duty. Okay? And if there's anybody on this planet that can go into court and beat the shit out of these people, it's me. The only reason I'm not an attorney today is because I have this mental disorder. I, for some reason, have no patience to read instructions. And I just proved it again the other day. I bought this pastrami from Katz's Deli in New York. I send you a 5-pound pastrami. And I'm reading the instructions on what to do. And so I put the pastrami, the whole package in the water, and I boil it for 3 hours, and it doesn't really come out too good. I open it up, and it's still kind of hard and stuff. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I decide that I'm going to put it back in the water, but boil it without the packaging and everything. Ended up coming out pretty good. So I decided the other day I'm going to order another one of those because they were good once I did what I realized right. And here I'm looking at the thing. What's the first line? Remove the packaging. Why didn't Mike see that first one? Remove the packaging. Because I have this brain disorder that just ignores, I never like looking at the instructions for anything. I don't have the patience for that. And that's how I flunked my first year law tests. I flunked them. I'd been doing law for, this was 2012. I'd been doing law for 12 years, okay? I had already won a lawsuit against workers' comp. Actually, we never got to a lawsuit. We went through the process, and they settled for $15,000 I had me as my attorney. And so they settled for $15,000 when the law firm that was in their building said I would get $5,000. The most they could get me was $5,000. I got myself 15. What's that mean? Huh? Handled several divorces, including my own, where my former wonderful, lovely wife and her attorney from hell thought they were going to take me for every dime. There's only one problem. When they sent me the paperwork to sign, I had to sign the approval to sell the house. Oh, really? And I guess I'm not getting any money from the sale of the house. She's going to get all $30,000 equity, and I get nothing? Wrong! Make an adjustment on the form, send it back up. And the guy the attorney for the deal says, well, we got an issue because you put an exact amount of what you should get, and we don't know exactly what's going to come from the sale. I'm going to send it back to you, but I'm going to put in that the proceeds are split 50-50. Good. Damn, bang. Our attorney didn't get her anything extra. And he was an idiot. So, technically, the stimulus bill is actually changing the terms of the $7,500 tax credit that was issued as part of the Housing Recovery Act, which Congress passed last summer. That legislation required that the tax credit be repaid over 15 years, making it more of a no-interest loan. How come it didn't say no-interest loan on the tax form? Huh? Why didn't they use that term? Why didn't it even state that on the tax form? Why did they have to hide it in the instructions? Not surprisingly, the measure had little impact on the market. The stimulus bill now under consideration would make that tax credit a true credit. So this is a true credit, and this ain't shit. If this is a true credit, what is the opposite of a true credit? Let's see. True. What's the other word? True or false? False. That's it. True credit. So this is a true credit. This is a false credit. False credit? Mean you had a false credit on the tax code? Oh, I don't know about that. Gee, Mike, I don't think your claim is frivolous, do you? Yeah, the IRS wrote back and said, come on, Mike, get out of here. You're frivolous. We're not paying attention. Matter of fact, here's your $5,000 penalty. Okay? Here's your $5,000. Homeowners get a bonus from the stimulus bill. Yeah. Now, the stimulus bill was all approved and everything in 2009 early, like around March, or no, actually around January 29th or something. Why in God's name did they not allow us in 2008 to make the change? Why did we not amend our 2008 tax return, but the people in 2009 did? Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Getting a thought. The lords of the Constitution are telling me equal protection under the law, asshole. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court. You think someday they'll let me, I'll have to wear a shirt, a suit and tie, stand in front of the Supreme Court to defend myself as the Supreme going to go, Wiley's right, get the hell out of here. How come Wiley's always right in court? Because I'm not an asshole, okay? You think I'm going to bring something up in front of a judge that's stupid, that makes no sense? Look, I was in court for some 20-odd years. I'd go into court, and I'd be sitting there waiting for my case to be called. And I would see these guys come up, and they were like attorneys, and some were fake attorneys, and the judges would beat the crap out of these guys for not knowing their shit. And you'd sit there and you'd say to yourself, my God, I couldn't pass my law test final, but those guys did. I found out later on that I could have taken all my finals over and been given more time to do the test because of my disability. And I went, the hell with it. I learned tort law, criminal law, and contract law. I know enough to be dangerous. And I am. Okay? So now, I'm going to show you something. It's obvious that this first-time homebuyer tax credit difference year over year was purposely hidden from the American people. It's called intent to defraud. Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats intended to defraud those of us in 2008 because George Bush was president, when we should have waited another 3, 4, 5 months and bought when Obama the Wonder God was president. Here is the form filled out in my tax return in 2008. This is what the form looked like. First-time homebuyer tax credit attached to Form 1040. It's Form 5405. And it says address, date acquired. And it says here, if you are choosing to claim the credit on your 2008 return for a main home bought after December 31st, 2008 and before December 1st, 2009, check here. Why? What's the difference? So I take the $7,500 credit, and that's that. Then, February 2009, they changed the form, but they don't change the date. I'm sorry. Why does this say Rev February 2009, and this says Rev February 2009? can't. You change the form, it's got to be a different date than this one. Oh, wow. This one has it right on the form. Who can claim the credit? And here's the repayment of the credit for the 2008 homes purchased, okay? Homes purchased in 2009. You don't have to pay shit. Yeah, because Lord Obama was president, and you must be rewarded for that. This is a scam. This is a fraud. And by the way, what's it say? Okay, I'm going to give you a little test. Okay, if we look at the document from Congress, okay, it says refundable credit. Do you see the word refundable credit on here? It says first time home buyer credit. It doesn't state refundable credit. This form must be for something else and not that law that was passed as the Housing Act. That's just my guess. Your Honor, can you have the IRS and the Democratic Party explain to us why the word refundable is not on this form? Oh, Mike, we're trying to be sneaky. You can't tell people sneaky stuff. Now, here. Information regarding the 2008 Form 5405. Now, why am I doing this show? Do you think I'm the only person to get screwed on this 2008 tax thing? When it should have been allowed for me to not have to pay it back, like those in 2009, 2010 when Obama was president? It's a clear adjustment and Democrats scam. Remember, Democrats get into Congress and they scam everything. And that's why when I fill out the documents I send to Doge, I'm going to explain to them how to find where the money goes. Okay? Because remember, if you're going to steal something, first of all, you have to know who's the criminal. Well, let's see. In 2009, the criminal was Barack Obama. So when all of a sudden HHS started costing more money than the federal defense budget, something was wrong. Obama increased federal spending by $1 trillion his first year as president. In 2009, when he was president and he had the 2008 Democrat Congress, they increased spending by $1.1 trillion. Now, before he was president in 2008, the Democrats increased the spending by, I think, about $700 billion. So there'd be all this money for Obama to spend, because remember, all this shit's done in coordination. Now, can anybody tell me what happened in 1929? 1929. Mike, that was the Depression. Yes. A financial depression occurs the year before an election. What a coincidence. 1929 was the year before 1930. What happened in 1987? The stock market crashed Black Monday on October 1987. And what was 1987? The year before 1988, election. And then give us 2007. Come on, what was 2007? Oh, that was the TARP funds, remember? During the 1990s, the Clinton administration absorbed a whole bunch of money from Fannie Mae. They stole Fannie Mae blind. No, nobody went to jail. But there was this problem. We can't blame Hillary Clinton. She's going to be a future president. We got to hide this. I know. Let's shove it up the Republican president's ass. And we'll do that. So let's hide it. And then, of course, in 2003 and 2005, the leading scum of the Democratic Party started pulling this shit out. Oh, yeah. You got to remember those days. Okay, Maxine Waters. Woo. Maxine Waters. And a gay guy from Massachusetts, Bonnie Frank, who both had ownership in the United Bank of Massachusetts, which didn't qualify for TARP funds. Until Santa Claus came down the chimney the night before they were going to vote on it, and he changed something. And then when it was signed, they got their money. Ever hear of robbing a bank through the Congress of the United States? Really? These assholes have stolen trillions from us all the time. Why do you think they always have plenty of money to campaign with? They steal it. Information regarding the 2008 Form 5405 first-time homebuyer credit. Changes have been made to the first-time homebuyer credit by Public Law 11192, the Worker, Home Ownership, and Business Assistance Act of 2009, which was enacted on November 6, 2009. It was actually enacted in January of 2009 when they allowed people to change take the credit. As a result, the 2008 Form 5405 can be used only for homes purchased before November 7th, 2009, for which you choose to claim the credit for 2008. We will issue a new revision of Form 5405 soon. The new revision must be used for all homes purchased after November 6, 2009, whether the credit is claimed for 2008 or for 2009. They allowed people who didn't have to pay this back to deduct it in the same year of the people that you had to pay it back on the same frickin' tax form. Is that illegal? Huh? Is that illegal? Have we found that the Democrats committed a crime? H.R. 1245, the Nancy Pelosi special, introduced in the House on 3/2/2009 to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to provide a federal income tax credit for certain home purchases. The year before, they did the same thing, but it was for a refundable credit. But the word refundable was to be hidden and never used again on the planet Earth. I swear to God, it's coming. Their day is coming. Okay, so now, why is the IRS after me? Because I pointed out what they did. I pointed out what they did. Why? Because I'm a forensic accountant. I've done accounting for a long time. I've been a CFO. I've been a pro se litigant for some 20 years. I go into court, and the judges always comment about how great my documentation is because it's logical and it's like a scalpel. And I cut up my opponents. The last opponent, or the last victim, was Allstate Insurance. Yeah. And we had to wait till the asshole landlord died, because he was gonna come settled, because I had him by the cojones. But he died in November 2022, and then Allstate called up and says, "Well, we're gonna go ahead and change us to be the defendants, and let's settle this thing." And we did. 40 grand, 5 grand went to Medicaid, and 35,000 went to the Mike Wiley Special Forces Fund. All right, so now 2022, the year in question. God, I've only talked for an hour and 9 minutes. I haven't even played the videos yet. It's all right. I'll go in and edit some stuff out, but I kind of knew this would be a while because of the way I present. Dear taxpayer, we received your December 31st, 2022 tax return. Enclose only the information we requested, okay? The income amount of $44.57 you reported on line 3 of Schedule 1 indicates you may be liable for self-employment tax. Oh my goodness. I filled the form out, filled everything out, but I forgot to do the Schedule SE self-employment tax. So I completed it, sent it in to them, and sent them in a revised tax return to show the increase in the cost for the tax for that. Okay, no problem. You know, what's interesting? They didn't tell me that they thought it was frivolous. No, the first thing they said was I missed something. Okay. So when did they decide it's frivolous? When they found me taking deductions for inflation of $84.17 and not $400? Yeah, you see, here's this line. Here's the line right here. There's actually 2 lines. Line number 26, payments. 2022 estimated tax payments and amounts applied from the 2021 return. Now, what estimated tax payments in 2022 did I make? I paid $8,417. The federal government told me that. You know what? Just to be right, you know, I can't do this stuff. Where are you? Hold on a second. Okay. Here, this little memo from Andy Biggs. In the middle of the night, the Democrats released a 2,741-page, $1.5 trillion government funding bill. We're scheduled to vote on it today around 12 hours later. Why would they do that? Are you trying to tell me that the Democrats tried to hide shit in tax bills? A $1.5 trillion government funding? Yeah. Hey, Doge, go look at this shit. Okay, remember while Biden was president, they scoffed us for $7 trillion? Yeah, buddy. Inflation costing the average American $17.17 a month. That's from Economy Magazine, published on October 12th. Higher prices already cost Americans $86.07 over the past year. Does the IRS recognize inflation as a tax? Oh, they do. Look at that. It's an IRS document. The IRS provides tax inflation adjustments for tax year 2022. The standard deduction for married couples. I'm not married. Okay, so I'm free. Okay, the standard deduction rises up $400 for inflation. Wow. They're giving me $400 as a deduction, but it's supposed to be $84.17. Is this a crime? Is this not a fraud? Who's calling them on it? I am. Now you want to know why Hillary Clinton had me removed from WRQ in Boston in 1995? Besides my threat to run against her in the Democratic primary and tear the shit out of her in a debate, which she watched me do. Okay. And then the other part is amount from Schedule 3, line 15, $6,000. So we go to this. Okay. I didn't hide anything. I filled it out. Other payments or refundable credits. Other payments or refundable credits. Oh my God. Here it is. Here's the word, refundable credits. It's in this document. They didn't show it anyplace else except on the law, but not on the tax returns itself. They don't tell you it's a refundable credit. But now they use the word refundable credit. So it says, other payments or refundable credits, list type and amount. Illegal first-time home buyer 2008 credits repaid in violation of the 14th Amendment. Equal protection under the law. You can't tax the shit out of one American and untax the shit of another. You have to be equal on the law. That's the 14th Amendment, first section. The Democrats don't like to look at the first section, but now they're saying, oh, but illegal aliens can be citizens. Yeah, we can make them people right away, voters right away, but they can't because it's illegal. So I put the $6,000 in there because I paid it and I want the money back, which is what I did. So they consider that frivolous. That's frivolous, Mike. You have no documented evidence. Let's read frivolous one more time. I love this book. Where is it? Frivolous. Lacking a legal basis or legal merit. Not serious. Not reasonably purposeful. Want to make a bet? The American people who watch this show now know that they probably got screwed if they took that home tax credit in 2008 and got screwed because they should have been informed 2 minutes after the Democrats decided to pass a new law and make it so they can get the money without having to pay it back. Equal Protection Clause is part of the first section of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. The clause, which took effect in 1868, provides nor shall any state deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protections of the law. It mandates that individuals in similar situations be treated equally by the law, even if you change the law. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 actually extended that protection of equal protection for the federal government as well. And that was approved by Supreme Court. Okay, so now we're getting down to the bottom of this here. And I'm going to show you these videos and then we're going to be done. Matter of fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have these videos at the end. The first one is Milton Friedman. I love Milton Friedman. He's the one that gives you the presentation about how the Great Depression was bullshit. Ronald Reagan, some guy tax on savings, and Charlie Gasparino explain to you that inflation is a tax by the government. And therefore, when they gave you $400 in 2022, it should have been $8,417. The IRS owes a lot of Americans $8,000, and I want it paid back. Don't let them get away with this shit. They're common criminals. Common millionaire wealthy criminals. Okay, so the IRS sends me a letter saying, Mike, it's frivolous, go to hell. So I write to them and I say, Dear tax collector, because they write to me and say, Dear taxpayer, I am in receipt of your claim that I filed a tax return with a frivolous position. This is a false summation on your part. Without repeating your code 6702, it is obvious that you are mistaken, and I will explain you why. I have voluntarily filed income tax returns since 1975, that is almost 50 straight years. To contend that I would intentionally file a frivolous return now is not only absurd, but exposes once more the deep depravity that has taken over the federal government to ignore the laws provided for in the Constitution of the United States. Bingo! First, the 2006 Healthcare Act, that increases the penalty from $500 to $2,500 to $5,000 is in violation of the 8th Amendment to the Constitution. Excessive fines imposed. They just sent me the form saying I should pay him $5,000. Kiss my ass. That's a violation of the 8th Amendment. Now, I've already told them this. They already know this. I'm going to have to send them another letter setting them up for the we're going to court. The 2008 Form 5405 violates the 14th Amendment, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protections of the law. The IRS treats the 2008 credit as the same as the 2009 credit, yet the 2009 credit does not have to be paid back, and the IRS fails to clearly state that to 2008 taxpayers. It's obvious that either fraud on your part or on the part of the Democrats who produced the swindle. You cannot have two meanings for the same term if they are not treated as credits. One must be named home loan, because that is what it is. I bought a new truck for some $25,000 for my Labrador business, thinking it would qualify me for reduction in income to qualify for the $7,500 credit. I took out a loan for a truck I really didn't need, but of course it would have made the business easier. 25 grand, so I bring my income down so I could qualify for the 7,500. Who takes out a loan for $25,000 to qualify for another loan? You want to explain that? For 12 years, I did not complete that section of the return, resulting in $6,000 in funds taken from me, and now I want them back with no interest. I'm being nice. This is not a frivolous position, and I've taught federal taxation in college. Yeah, I did. And I have been in finance accounting for some 40 years, a little more like 50. Of course, I was in radio for 3-4 years, but I was still working in accounting while I was on radio. Tax inflation adjustment. Per your own 2022 calculations that was reported on your website. The problem is that you are committing financial fraud against the American people. by acknowledging inflation, but you are committing financial fraud against the federal taxpayers. I deducted the actual amount of inflation reported by the federal government, since your organization was busy committing financial fraud against the American people. Again, this is by no means frivolous. Do you think a jury of 12 taxpayers would consider this frivolous? According to 2024 report from the Government Accountability Office, the federal government may lose between $233 and $521 billion annually to fraud across its programs and operations. Some examples of federal fraud include government contracting, bribery, collusion, false billing, and substitution of inferior parts. Pete Hegseth just removed 5.1 excuse me. Pete Hegseth just removed $5.1 billion of unnecessary contracts for services that can't be proven to be done. That's just $5 billion, and the GAO is saying that there's $233 to $520 billion annually to fraud across its program. So let's just go back to 2009 with Obama. So let's just say you got 8 years of him and 4 years of Biden. That's 12. 12 times 500 billion is $6 trillion. That's about it, huh? What a coincidence. Embezzlement. Unlawful acquisition of money from government programs like Medicare and Medicaid. Huh? What's Doge finding? It's all here. They all know it's here. The corruption involving government officials. In summary, I'm prepared to take this to federal court, the Supreme Court, and I'll sit in front of the Congress of the United States and testify to why the IRS and the 16th Amendment are crimes against the American people. Not only have you taken over $75 trillion from the American people, but we're also now in debt of $35 trillion. Who is paying for that? I think your time is up. I, of course, will be representing myself in whatever court we end up in. I've done pro se law for 23 years. I know what I'm doing. They know I know what I'm doing. Why is that? Because I provided documented evidence that can't be considered frivolous. The good thing is these 4 videos that I'm going to play after this are short and sweet and to the point about inflation as a tax. We have a president and we have a Congress that will support the American people in the battle against government fraud. Government fraud is initiated and pledged to by the Democratic Party. They've been doing it for 160 years, and today's the anniversary, April 15th, 1865. 160 years ago, they killed Lincoln, and they want us to remember that. That's why they chose April 15th as the day to send in our taxes. The day they killed Lincoln. Okay? That's it. I love you. Bye.
The real tax on the American people is what government spends. If the federal government spends $450 billion and only raises $400 billion in taxes, who do you suppose who pays that other $50 billion? Do you suppose the tooth fairy does? Inflation is, from this point of view, a form of taxation. If government spends more than it takes in, it has to meet the difference, either by printing money or by borrowing from the public at large.
Government has only 2 ways of getting money other than raising taxes. It can go into the money market and borrow, competing with its own citizens and driving up interest rates, which it has done, or it can print money, and it's done that. Both methods are inflationary.
Inflation is a tax on savings. When the government prints money and thereby creates inflation, we get the same exact effect as if the government had imposed a tax on people's savings.
Well, inflation is a wicked tax on the working class. And, you were talking about wages being eaten up by this inflation. So he talks about jobs, the president. If you have to work 3 times as hard or work 2 jobs to afford that same hamburger, that's a problem. And that's kind of what we have right now.